Today I'm going to show you how to factor trinomials into two binomials by using the box method. As a reminder, I'm going to show you how we multiply binomials using the box. If you remember this, I took the two binomials and put them on either side of the box and then just multiplied almost as if it was some sort of multiplication table. Here we go. That was negative x, negative 2. And then if you remember, we took these two and we put them together. That's where the like terms usually were. And we ended up getting a 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. Well, today we're going to work with the inside and go out to get our two binomials. I want you to notice something here. This last box right here where the negative 2 is, notice that it's a negative because you have a negative and a positive multiplying. If the 1 and the 2 are both negative, that would be a positive 2. Or if the 1 and the 2 are both positive, it'd be positive 2. So it's important to know that as we go on to the next spot. All right, the goal here is to take this trinomial and turn it back into two binomials that'll be multiplying that would equal this. That's called factoring. As I do that, I need to focus on a couple things. First of all, the plus 4 is positive, which tells me that whatever I get to multiply to get to be positive 4 is going to be adding to get to the 5. And since everything's positive, all my numbers are going to be positive. So just like the AC method, if you watch that, the very first thing I'm going to do is multiply my first number that's in front of the x squared with my 4. Obviously, 1 times 4 is 4. And I'm going to get my factor box here. And I'm going to look at my pairs of factors and ask myself, which pair here adds to be 5? Well, this one is obvious. Next, I'm going to make a box. And inside the box, I'm going to put my first term, x squared, and my last term, positive 4. But instead of putting 5x, I'm going to take the 1 and 4, I'm going to split that to be 1x and 4x. Now basically, if I were to circle those and add them, 1x plus 4x, it better equal my 5x. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start factoring out. I'm going to start with this row right here and just ask myself, what's their greatest common factor? If you have not watched my greatest common factor video, you might want to do that before you finish this video. As you look here, the only thing that they have in common is an x. So I'm going to pull that out. I'll go ahead and erase my arrow so it doesn't get too confusing here. And then I'm going to look right here at this spot and ask myself, x squared is x times what? Well, x times x. So basically we're just going the opposite way in a box than we did when we multiplied. And then 4x, what times x equals 4x? Well, positive 4. And now I'm going to go down to this box and ask myself, all right, starting with this x right here, x times what equals 1x? Well, that's just a 1. The last thing I'm going to do is just make sure that everything is working by looking at the last box. Is the last box going to be 1 times 4? The answer is yes. And what you're looking at, you actually have your two binomials right there. You have x plus 1 and x plus 4. Now I'll go a little bit faster on the next few boxes as I do this. All right, as we look at this one, I notice that the 20 at the end is negative. That means that I'm going to be getting a positive and a negative number to multiply to equal that negative 20. That also means that I am going to be subtracting to get this middle term of 1x. And so I've already given you the factors of 20 right there. And I'm looking at which one subtract to get a 1. And it's this one. Since it's a positive 1, your bigger number has to be positive and your smaller number has to be negative. All right, here we go into the box. X squared here, negative 20 here. It does not matter which box has the negative 4 and which box has the positive 5x. You're going to get the same answer no matter what. I'm going to start here. I always start at this spot right here. I'm just pulling out from the from the x squared and the 5x. The only thing they have in common is an x. And then up here, x times what equals x squared? X. Then x times positive 5 gives me 5x. Now I'm going to start working on the columns going down. X times what equals negative 4x? That'd be negative 4. And then does negative 4 times 5 give me that negative 20? Yep. And then what you see on the outsides are your two binomials. Take a look at this one. We are back to having a positive 18 at the end. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put these in here. I know that a positive 18 means that I am finding two numbers that have the same signs, and I'm adding to get to that 9 in the middle. But since the 9 is negative, then both the numbers have to be negative that I'm adding. So looking here, what two numbers add to be 9? That was these two. And since 9 is negative, bam, I'm going to have a negative 3x and a negative 6x. Alrighty, now again, I'm just factoring out the top row. The only thing they have in common is an x. And then I'm basically multiplying everything else. I'm going to start with the top column here. What times x equals x squared? That's an x. And what times x equals negative 6x? Negative 6. And then down here, x times what is negative 3x? Negative 3. And does negative 3 times negative 6 equal positive 18? Yep, that works. So here we go. All right, we have one last easy one. Now, just to let you know what I've done so far is I multiplied the number in front of x squared, the 1, times the 24, and got 24, and made the little factor box. Now, what do you think I'm going to do? Find numbers that add to be 10 or subtract to be 10? Well, if you said subtract, you are correct. This negative 24 means I have to have one positive and one negative. And when you put those together to get 10, there'll be a subtraction going on. So we're looking at this pair right here. For the 10 to be negative, your bigger number must be negative, which means the 2 needs to be positive. All right, here's my x squared and my negative 24. And then I'm going to do a 2x and a negative 12x. I'm going to start where I start over here. I can just pull an x out. Now later on there'll be more numbers than just an x. And here's an x. And then x times negative 12 is negative 12x. X times positive 2 is 2x. And check 2 plus negative 12, not plus, times negative 12 is negative 24. And if you're not sure if this is right, go ahead and FOIL it or put it back in the box or whatever and just multiply to see if it gets back to be x squared minus 10x minus 24. Now what I'd like you to do is stop the video, pause the video, and do these 4 problems on your own. And then once you're done, start the video to see if you have the correct answers. Well, you may have had issues with number 8, but let's start with 5, 6, and 7. Here we go. I saw that since 9 is positive, I'm adding to get to 10. The factors were 1 and 9, and both of them had to be negative for that to work out. And here's your answer. Next group, number 6. Here we go. I did the factor tree. I realized that they had to have the same signs because 64 is positive. I was adding to get to 16. The two were 8 and 8. What was really kind of cool about this one is that it ended up being a special, if you remember any of the specials that we talked about earlier. Now let's go to number 7. In this one, factors of 24, but because 24 was negative, I had to subtract to get to the 2. That gave me the 6 and the 4, where the 6 had to be positive because the 2 is positive. Then finally, let's look at number 8. You'll notice I don't have very much work on there, because what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to find two numbers that multiply to be 24 that add to be 4. Well, none of them do. So this is not factorable. All right, now we're going to take it up a notch and actually have a number bigger than 1 in front of our x squared. It is very important that you multiply that number right here and your constant before you get anywhere. Otherwise, you will not get the right answer. So 5 times 8 is 40, and you want to make a factor box for the 40. From here, you're doing the exact same thing. Since the 8 is positive, you're finding two numbers that add up to that negative 14. And so as I look, I see this, and because it is a negative 14, they both need to be negative. I'm going to put my first term in the first box and my last term in the last box. And then I'm going to put the negative 4 with an x here and the negative 10 with an x. And again, the negative 4x plus the negative 10x better equal your middle term right here. I'm going to start with this row, and I see that I can pull out a 5 and an x. That's the greatest common factor. And then right here, I'm going to ask myself, all right, what times 5x gave me 5x squared? That's an x. Next, I'm going to be asking for this one. 5x, you know, the one that's outside, times what equals negative 10x. That'd be a negative 2, because 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. I don't need any more x's. Now I'm going to be here, and I'm going to say x up there way at the top times what equals negative 4x. Well, that's just negative 4. And then finally I'm going to check that 8 and see, does negative 4 times negative 2 give me positive 8? Yes. So here are my two binomials. Use a box, foil it, distribute, whatever, to check your answer to see if you have the right thing. Do you remember what to do first? If you said multiply 9 times 40, you are correct. That is 360. Now we need to find the factors of 360. I always tell my students that if you find what you're looking for before you finish the factor box, then go for it. Don't finish the factor box. So it'd be nice to know what we're looking for. Since the negative 40 is negative, since 40 is negative, then I'm going to be subtracting to get a 9. So do we have a pair yet that subtracts to get 9? Not even close. We got to keep going. Whew. I think I finally found it. The 15 and the 24. And since the 9 is positive, my bigger number must be positive. Okay, time to make my box. Just a real easy 2 by 2. Put my 9x squared here and my negative 40 here. And then in this other diagonal, I'll have a negative 15x and a positive 24x. All right, starting on the left-hand side in the top row, what is the greatest common factor of 9x squared and 24x? I believe that is a 3x. And then 3x times what gives me 9x squared? Well, another 3x. 3x times what gives me a 24x? That's a positive 8. And now I'm going to go to the bottom row. 3x times what gives me negative 15x? That's a negative 5. All right, 3x minus 5 and 3x plus 8 is my answer. All right, on this one, I multiplied the 5 times the 81 and got 405. And so I've done my factors. I also looked and saw that it was a negative 81. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm adding or subtracting to get that middle 36? If you said subtracting, you are correct. So as I'm looking through, I think I finally found it right here. And because the 36 is negative, my bigger number must be negative. This number is positive. So here we go. I'm going to put my first term in the first box, my last term in the last box. Then I'm going to take that 9x and then negative 45 and put an x. All right, now I'm going to start factoring out on the left-hand side. I can pull 5x here. And then 5x times x would give me that 5x squared. 5x times negative 9 gives me the negative 45x. And then on the bottom row, x times 9 gives me 9x. And then I'm going to check myself. Does 9 times negative 9 give me a negative 81? Yes, it does. And so my answer is 5x plus 9 and x minus 9. I would like you to pause the video and try this one on your own. And once you're done, start the video to see if you have the correct answer. here you go. I had to multiply the 6 times the 45. I got 270. And because 45 was positive, I wanted to add to get 37. Took me all the way down almost to the end of the line there to find my two numbers. Put them in a box. Here's my answer. Is that what you got? Well, go and enjoy some practice problems.